They promise us AI abundance. Robots do the work, shelves stay full. But what good is abundance if most people can't afford it? This is a core paradox of the AI era. Welcome to the end of consumerism. In the next 10 minutes, we will unpack three things. First, what consumerism really is. Well, a hidden coordination tool. Second, why once it seemed so unstoppable. And finally, third, how AI might bring it to an end. And what that means for regular people like you and me. You are on Scripto channel, and we hunt AI anomalies. We crack open black boxes. Hit subscribe and decode the next signal.
Anomaly detected.
Pencil is one of the simplest objects. Yet Milton Friedman liked to show that this little stick inside hides labor of thousands. Loggers, miners digging for iron and graphite, smelters, designers laying out the box, advertisers pitching back to school. Now scale from a pencil to an aircraft carrier, or even to something more complex, say NVIDIA AI chip. Suddenly, you're coordinating well over 1 million people spread across continents. How do you motivate that human swarm? And that's where consumerism comes into play. Because the most effective way to make someone do something is to make them want to do it. But how? Well, by making each person want something just out of reach, like better food or better restaurant, fancier clothes, bigger apartment or a newer phone. But how do you make people want those things? Well, that's why advertisement exists. It ignites the spark. Then someone has to produce those things. And once those phones are produced, you have to sell them. And that's what retail does. And of course, you also have to finance them. And that's where banks come in. That loop is consumerism. Consumerism creates an entire spectrum of industries and professions that wouldn't otherwise exist. Sales and marketing, coders, white-collar workers, retail, logistics, and of course, banking. And what is even more interesting is that those support workers, the secondary layer, they also want food and fancy clothes and a new phone. For 70 years, this invisible mechanism has synchronized millions of strangers, converting individual cravings into aircraft carriers, smartphones, and space telescopes, without anyone issuing top-down orders. Consumerism is a global coordination system disguised as everyday shopping.
Anomaly detected.
One thing we shouldn't forget, this whole system exists for one simple purpose: to build the aircraft carrier, or whatever primary object is essential for group survival. At the center, we have the primary builders, the ones who actually construct the aircraft carrier. That's the core. But they want to consume, so we get a secondary layer of workers who support their consumption. And then a third layer, those who support the consumption of the second layer. This is how the consumerism snowball builds momentum, growing larger with every turn. What a waste, some of you might say. So many people doing nothing but support roles. But as we're about to see, consumerism turned out to be one of the most efficient systems ever built, because like many other things, it can be used as a weapon. The Cold War was a competition between the West and the Soviet Union, between the two supermachines racing towards the same finish line: global domination. The Soviet machine was simple. Everything was coordinated from the center. The party decided what needed to be produced, right down to a single nail. Motivation was even simpler. If you didn't work, you disappeared. As simple as that. Fueled by this strange mix of coercion and patriotism, the Cold War-era Soviet society was essentially a lighter version of the Gulag. On paper, the Soviets matched the West tank for tank. But behind these military parades, the economy stagnated. Chronic shortages, endless queues, little incentive to innovate a better toaster, never mind a better transistor. Consumerism, in the meantime, was an invisible hand on the throttle for the West. Do you need a moon rocket? Well, easy. All you need to do is just to raise taxes on consumer profits and then recruit brightest minds with the promise of 2 cars and a swimming pool. In 1991, the Soviet engine finally stalled on the highway. And the lesson seemed obvious. A desire-driven system outruns the coercion-driven one. So powerful the consumerism seemed to be that even China, the formerly communist China, succumbed to it and flooded the Cartier and Chanel stores around the world with crowds of loud-speaking tourists hungry for luxury. Consumerism has won the race. And then something strange happened. It turned out that a system designed to beat a rival begins to behave differently, strangely, once the rival is defeated. And that's where our story heads next. What happens to a weapon after the enemy is defeated? Well, sometimes it simply rusts away. But sometimes it becomes a totem, one step short of a god. Corporations kept building capacity because this cycle, the machinery of advertisement, manufacturing, logistics, and credit, it was never designed to stop, to downsize. And as a result, shopping malls mushroomed, and buy more became a civil duty. Marketers perfected dopamine triggers, push alerts, influencer envy, all these countless countdown deals. 30 years of Pavlovian pings placed a very simple mantra deep into our cortex. The mantra is, I spend, therefore I am. Oh, talking about that, don't forget to subscribe. This is a typical self-storage facility. This is where people keep stuff they do not need. And by 2000s, in the US, there were more self-storage facilities than McDonald's restaurants. One closet's filled up, wallets emptied. Solution? Borrow. The American national debt hits $37 trillion, which is roughly $106,000 per person.
Anomaly detected.
Originally, consumerism was a wartime tool, like a weapon. But then, somehow, gradually, it turned into a goal, into the final destination. Almost like meaning of life. And that's how this car, the ultimate weapon designed and built to win races, instead ended up being marooned in a parking lot. Gear in neutral, but engine running at full throttle, piling up debt instead of victories. This is what happens when a weapon stays idle. And then, suddenly, just as that idling engine starts to glow red hot, artificial intelligence rolls on the track in an entirely different kind of a vehicle. Suddenly, more and more front pages showing us the same line. Fewer humans needed. Coders, marketers, analysts, even burger flippers. Automation is moving up the food chain. And here are just a few most recent data points. More than 30% of code at Microsoft is already written by AI. And it is expected that by the end of this year, this number will cross 50. Half of the code at Microsoft will be written by AI. Ford has announced they expect 50%, half of white-collar jobs be replaced just within a few years. It turned out that tasks like forecasting or support of managerial decisions or paperwork, these are tasks that AI is already very good at. And most importantly, AI can do them at nearly zero marginal cost, basically for free. In sales and marketing, the former foundation of consumerism, AI is cutting even deeper. If we take a look at the most recent mass layoffs, for example, in Microsoft or Bumble, we will see that sales and marketing roles are being targeted there. No other profession has been hit so hard. Coders, white collars, sales and marketing. What do they all have in common? They are the backbone of the consumerism loop. The secondary layers supporting the primary movers. In other words, AI isn't just replacing people. It is shutting down the entire concept of consumerism. AI is replacing the snowball itself. And this is where they usually say, hey, don't panic. Abundance is coming. Robots will make everything for us. And that's gonna be also UBI, Universal Basic Income. So people will just keep spending. And the consumerism snowball will keep rolling. So relax. Abundance is coming. The plan? Well, tax AI. And then redistribute the proceeds to the people made redundant. They will keep spending. And that's how consumerism will be saved. Easy as. So people keep shopping. And robots do the work. It's a new form of consumerism, right? Well, the concept sounds elegant indeed. until we add one missing component, one missing variable into this equation. Remember how the collapse of the Soviet Union has switched the competition off? Well, that pause is over now. Competition is on. China. China has already become a global tech power and AI power as well. And unlike the Soviet Union, Chinese engine is very well oiled. So for the West, it's a race for survival. Just like in any survival race, in AI survival race, every spare dollar goes to survival. To AI chip R&D, or to energy storage, or to quantum encryption. Definitely not to latte vouchers. Well, at least not when we already know that fewer humans are needed for survival. And that's exactly what the recent case of mass layoffs at Microsoft demonstrated us crystal clear. Microsoft swims in cash, showing record high profits, yet erases 6% of its workforce overnight, terminating roles that are deemed non-essential for AI survival race. That's survival logic. Shed anything that doesn't help you win the AI race. And here I want to repeat the message that Microsoft is sending to us, because this is the most important message of the video. There's going to be no sharing of AI profit. This profit is not going to be sent to people who are less necessary now. Instead, all this profit will be reinvested into winning the AI race. There's going to be no UBI. Consumerism is about to be switched off. It's survival of the fittest. Robots do the work, shelves stay full. But what good is abundance if most people can't afford it? So what does it mean for us? Well, the world is being divided into two separate streams. The world of the past, consumerism, the world of depleted resources and unsustainable debt, and the new world, the world of AI and merciless competition. And the winner is already known. If you like this video, please give it a like. Your likes help us tremendously.
Anomaly detected.
All right. And here we've reached our secret section. So I've been working on this video about the consumerism, end of consumerism, for quite some time, for a few months actually. Because I personally believe that this is probably the most profound, the deepest way how AI is going to affect our lives, our world. And all this time, while I was working on the video, I was trying to find a simple analogy to explain what is going on. Because, analogy is often the easiest way. You don't have to spend minutes and minutes of explaining something. You just give one quick sentence and everything becomes clear. So I was searching for that type of analogy and I found one. But I did it just a few days ago, after the core of the video was already filmed and edited. But here's an analogy. It basically just a very condensed version of the whole thing, but it makes it so easy to understand. So imagine that you are in a corporate world. You're with some company, a large international company, in a time of a crisis. So let's say it's 2008, GFC, global financial crisis. Everything just goes to hell. You see entire departments disappearing left and right. So that type of crisis. So what happens usually at the times is you finally find out that there are two types of people, two types of employees around you. There are so-called revenue makers or revenue bringers, workers who actually bring in revenue and profit to the company. And also there are non-revenue bringing people, pretty much everybody else. And these are also called support people. And what you very quickly find is that in time of crisis, it is usually this support people that are being let go, that are being slashed right away. Not right away, but basically they're first in line. And we're talking about different industries, it can be different, but we're talking about some back office, usually in banking, for example, and some analysts, sell-side guys, well, again, depending on the industry. So in the past, it was revenue, ability to bring in revenue. That was basically defining who's core employee and who's not, who's going to stay and who's going to go. But now it's different because nobody cares about revenue anymore. The only thing that matters now is AI survival, AI race. And if you listen through the investment presentations, investment calls that they have, the only thing that really matter now is AI, how that business is transforming, is adapting to AI. Because the reality is that many of them, they won't make it. Because think about it, they just astonish, in a complete astonishment, they're looking around and they see how everything is changing. The entire business model, in many, many cases, basically is no longer stable. Everything is changing. AI changes everything for them. And the only thing that really matters for businesses, for employees now is AI. So it's AI race that is actually replacing revenue. Now, AI race matters. And also another thing that is very different from the past was that in the past, these support roles, non-essential roles, they were usually maybe 10, 20, 30%, depends on the industry we are talking about. But here in AI race, we probably dealing with much higher number. If you ask me, like, hey, how many people basically are going into this consumerism switching off mince grinder? Well, I would say my personal guess would be, and this is based on just my personal professional career, because through my career I've been in different roles. I've been with about 100 companies, all sorts of industries, pretty much I think all industries I've covered, usually as a contractor. And that was on 4 continents. So very good sample, I would say. And just my personal guess on what I've seen, how and what they do, I would say we're definitely talking about 50% of roles that are currently out there, they will be considered by AI as support roles, unnecessary. And 50% is optimistic scenario, because if you ask me one more time, I would say that the actual number probably is closer to 90% of roles that are currently out there. 90% of them basically support roles. They support consumerism. They support the previous paradigm. We, profession-wise, we want to be as far away from this old school, old generation consumerism support roles. Just we need to bluntly ask ourselves a question like, hey, am I in this consumerism support role, or am I in AI survival race? Another way to ask this question is basically, am I helping some company, some business to survive in the AI race? Am I an asset in this race, or I'm just a liability, a thing from the past? And basically this is how it all boils down. We want to be in this first camp, asset in the AI survival, AI race, and not a liability in this consumerism support. And another interesting aspect here, or angle, and potentially even more important than jobs, is actually investments. Because if we look at it and just make one step further in this logic, And we try to understand what's going to be the biggest impact of this AI switching off consumerism. It's actually going to be, the impact will be on investments. Because if we look at what is a share, what is a proportion of investments and businesses are actually dealing with consumer, dependent on consumerism, the answer will be, I would say, at least half. Well, don't fact check me here, just because depending on what kind of, how you phrase this query, the answer can be 20% or 80%. So it's very basically a random number. However, lots of businesses actually directly connected with consumerism. Let's take some of the biggest names that we have there. Google or Amazon. Google, advertisement, consumerism. Amazon, marketplace, consumerism. The question is it going to be affected dramatically or not? I don't know. But this is something that we all have to keep in mind. Almost every business is currently still in the old paradigm. They're still very much interconnected with all these millions, billions of people who've been rolling the consumerism loop. How's it going to be affected? Well, we will see. But another important aspect here is it's not just businesses, it's actually real estate as well, for example. Well, with offices, commercial real estate, it's very clear, right? All these shopping malls and office buildings, well, if there is no need to do work anymore, and 90% of people, even 50% of people basically no longer needed for that, and all this consumer-linked jobs, support jobs are gone, who's going to use offices? Right? But if we take one more step further, we will ask ourselves a question like, hey, what's going to happen to residential real estate, all the apartments? Because if we look at any downtown, any CBD, central business district, anywhere in the world, they've been built with a simple business idea to help workers who don't want to commute too far to live close to their offices. And that's what they do. That's what the business idea of all these investments. And how they gonna be relevant in this AI switching off consumerism scenario? Well, not scenario, actually. I think it's pretty much certain reality that is coming. And again, I don't know, but the problem is that many of us have investments in this residential properties, directly or indirectly. And I think everybody would be in this in this equation with many unknowns, equation of, hey, will people still need residential real estate close to downtowns, to the offices? I don't know. Or how that will they be able to pay for it? Are they going to have wages and paychecks to pay for it? We don't know. What's going to happen with inflation in this entire consumerism scenario? Again, we don't know, because I can just think quite many different scenarios that would go into completely opposite directions, and I could argue, I could support, defend all of them. Those scenarios with absolutely opposite outcomes, right? But this is something that we just need to think about, to keep in mind, is that the transition to the switching off the consumerism model is actually bringing us to this whole unexplored territory that we've never been before. All right, so what that means is that you just stay away from consumerism and stay close to AI race, and that's pretty much it. That's a recipe for survival. But how exactly you do that? Where do you go? Here's the answer. This is one of the videos that we had. This is a profession that is basically helping AI to survive. This is AI energy. And we have it on our sister channel, AI Survival Guide. But if you're more keen for kind of futuristic aspects of this, here's another video that we also had. It's AI energy. It's about AI fusion. That's more kind of a long-term view. I hope you're gonna like. I think you're gonna like both videos. All right, see you on the other side.